Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Marissa Kozlov. It's great to have you with us for today's eMarketer Tech Talk, where we host guests from all areas of media, ad tech, and martech. Today, we'll be taking a first look at new data from Wurl around the key trends shaping free ad-supported streaming. And I am joined by some special guests today. First, we have Dave Bernath, CEO of Wurl, who's joining us from New York. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Marissa, great to be here with you and everyone watching.
Yeah, happy to have you here. We also have Scott Young, co-founder and chief product officer of Transmit, who's joining us today from Miami. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Marissa, thanks for having us.
And joining us shortly will be Kathy Argyriou, head of publisher sales at FreeWheel, who's also in New York today with me. All right, so Dave, Scott, Kathy, and I have a great conversation planned for all of you. And afterwards, we will be opening it up for questions. So just use the chat window to tell us where you're tuning in from and also to submit any questions for the Q&A. We'll get to as many as we can. So with that, let's get started. So before we dive into the specific trends from Wurl's latest report, let's take a step back here and consider where the free ad-supported streaming market is today. Dave, where are we in this trajectory here with streaming? Are we in the early innings? Are we in the market maturity level? What are your thoughts on that?
Definitely not market maturity. I think about it in two ways. Certainly this crowd, the people watching today, Scott, myself, you who work in the biz, it might feel a little more mature because, ad-supported streaming and these linear channels and on demand, it's all been around for a pretty good while. But if you take a step back and you look at sort of, I think two things when I think of it. One, probably just our own anecdotal experience, right? When you talk to your friends and family and relatives, are they even aware that there's all this great free content on their Samsung TV or their Vizio TV? Have they heard of the apps, Pluto and Zumo? And I think you find that adoption generally is pretty low across the whole population. It's not mainstream at all. So there's that general thing that I think I just feel as a person in the world who, watches media. And then you look at just the money in the system. We'll talk today about fantastic growth in viewership in ad-supported streaming, but the money that is spent on broadcasting cable still has not followed a lot of the eyeballs. So we're definitely in the early innings, I think, on wide mainstream awareness and adoption, despite the great growth we'll talk about today. And definitely in terms of, money moving from legacy television to this new exciting digital connected device television, that is definitely in the early innings.
All right. Well, thank you for that. It's a great point you make about all of us being in the industry. Sometimes we don't realize where we are within those stages. So thank you for that perspective. Scott and Kathy, I would love your take on this. What do you think is actually driving advertiser momentum towards free ad-supported streaming? And not only that, what do you think is holding it back? Scott, I'll ask you first on that one.
Yeah. So one, I mean, I've been, as Dave, echoing Dave's sentiment, I've kind of been immersed in this for the last 20 years. And I think that we're at the most exciting time where we're seeing that progression in viewership. So first and foremost, what's driving that for advertisers is one, attention. I mean, advertisers are craving the attention of their consumers. TV is the most attention-grabbing medium. Fast is TV's progression, and viewership growth is substantiating that progression. So advertisers are always going to follow viewership, and fast is growing at a tremendous pace and can offer that viewership and engagement. What's holding it back from our perspective, there's really a need for ad product innovation. And we've been really running the same TV ad pod break for the last 80 years. We've been just taking what we've done on TV and duplicating that into digital streaming. So how can we harvest that attention most effectively? Advertisers need better solutions to complement the ad break and stand out beyond the clutter. And we're going to talk about some of that today.
All right. Thank you. And Kathy, I'd love your take from the perspective that you have at FreeWheel.
Absolutely. So to the question of what is driving fast, hello, it's free. Who doesn't love free? And so we are seeing, myself included, I became a cord cutter. And the same way that I have shifted my viewing behavior to fast content, so are a lot of other audiences. So that incrementality in audiences has definitely played a big role. I do believe that advertisers are definitely seeing this. And for advertisers, they recognize that you are able to combine that premium video storytelling experience that everyone is so accustomed to having from television, but you're also able to layer that with data and more accountability and having more richer information that is being available than it was in linear. And so you have that household level targeting, you have attribution, which ultimately for an advertiser helps improve ROI. So I do feel that the momentum is very clear. Patterns are moving, just like myself. You are reaching the cord cutters, but also the cord nevers. And I do think that it is in everyone's best interest to make sure that FAST, with this increase in audiences, is part of the media mix. It shouldn't just be an experimental. With that said, it does lead us to the question of what is preventing them from leaning in more. What are some of the challenges? And I do think that simplification is a problem. From the FreeWheel perspective, we see it. We work with a number of FAST providers, from the Plutos to the Tubies to the Roku channels to the Samsungs to the Vizios, the LGs, Plex, you name it. There's a lot out there. But with that comes fragmentation. Every one of these platforms works differently. They measure differently. They have different barriers of entry. They have different rules. And so I do think that unless we are able to have more consistent measurement and fewer silos, FAST will still not accelerate to the speed that we need it to.
That's a great point that you make with the inconsistency in the metrics there. So thank you both for sharing your perspective on that. Dave, Wurl's report shows the number of monthly active households watching free ad-supported streaming channels has actually grown by 12%, while total hours viewing has seen a nearly 29% increase year over year. So from your point of view, what's fueling that growth?
You know, it's a nice situation where all the oars are rowing in the right direction. You have a growing amount of households that are, on these services, and that is due to, we can imagine, certainly new televisions, right? People go out and upgrade or buy a new smart TV for another room in the house. They plug it in. Oh, whoa, Samsung TV Plus, how cool. And they're in. So increase in households, we love that. But then also people are watching for longer. Their session times are increasing. The average daily amount they're watching is going up, and even their times watching channels. So it's a nice to see a combination of more people. You could have more people and have the sort of the average time spent be a plateauing, for example, right? People kind of see what it is and they're not really wanting more, but they see what it is and they're wanting more at the same time. So it's very encouraging.
That's great to see. We love that up and to the right type of chart that you had right there on the screen. Kathy, Wurl's data also suggests that viewers are watching longer and discovering more content across free streaming channels. You've just listed off, a whole host of different channels right there. Most households are watching 3 to 4 channels per month, while the amount of time a viewer spends watching a single channel before switching has grown 25% year over year. And even beyond those stats, the average number of channels viewed is up between 10 and 50%. So what's the benefit here for advertisers?
So I love this information. And I think what this data shows is that viewers are not just sampling, they're not just surfing. They are staying longer. They're discovering more channels. And longer viewing sessions means that viewers are more attentive. And the content and the ads and basically the message that a marketer is able to provide a viewer will likely resonate more. So I do think that the takeaway when I see this is that this increase in time spent is meaning more engagement. It carries a lot more engagement. It allows you to know that you are going to be able to have an environment that you could customize and really resonate a message to the audience.
So we see these numbers on the screen about people spending more time and watching longer. Let's move on to looking at some of the notable trends, some of the notable trends taking shape around different genre types on free ad-supported streaming. What are people exactly watching in terms of that? Dave, what does Wurl's data reveal here?
Actually, Marissa, I was going to ask if we could double tap on this one
sure.
Before we do. So, a lot of the folks who are listening may not be as familiar with some of these same stats in cable. I come from that world, Comedy Central and other cable networks. And for the average cable viewer, you're in the low teens in terms of number of channels watched per month. So I look at this in two ways. It's like exciting to see it grow. You mentioned the 10 to 50% that we've seen on various platforms. And yet 3 to 4 is not a big number when the average person is watching in double digits on their cable subscription. So that to me says there's still a lot of discovery still to happen where people are going to understand that there's news channels, weather, some niche sports that's live, and then old movies and sitcoms. And obviously we'll talk about the genres in a minute. So, if you don't know about the TV norms for, people in multi-channel homes, this might just seem like, okay, 3 to 4, but when if we could get to 8 or 9, which I think is very reasonable in the next year or so, that's going to increase viewership a lot. So I just wanted to hit that before we move on to the genres.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
So maybe you can just remind me of your question. Sorry,
Yeah,
audience.
absolutely. I'd love to hear what Wurl's data revealed in terms of the different
Yeah.
genre types. Here, I see we have reality TV as the top genre.
Yeah, fast linear channels essentially are kind of a mirror of basic cable and have kind of the main things are represented. Where you see a slight under indexing is things like sports, which we get that, right? All the premium sports are on broadcasting cable, increasingly on digital, but more things like Thursday Prime Football on Amazon, not like in a free environment on a Pluto or Roku channel. But reality is just an incredibly strong category. And I think this also probably reflects both reality and drama reflect the one unique feature that we all know about these fast channels is these single IP channels. As much as fast linear is kind of like cable, you have an EPG, you have neighborhoods of channels, you have Ice Road Truckers, you have Portlandia, you have the Walking Dead universe, you have single IP channels, and those are built upon these major hits, this premium IP. So I think that causes reality to even be a little bit even higher. But basically, everything is there for everybody. And one little side note that we saw in looking at the genre trends is that news viewership is really held up. Like we normally would see, like maybe a little bit of a dip post-election. There's a lot of news these days, as sure we all know, and the news product on fast is fantastic. Sports you can debate and other genres that maybe don't quite have the premium level because of rights and expense, but news on fast is fantastic. Local channels, Bloomberg, NBC, CBS, they all have fantastic news offerings, and so it's interesting to see news sort of punching above its weight a little bit in fast.
All right, well, thank you for that. Scott, I'd actually love your take on sports in particular. As Dave just said, they're becoming much more available across fast channels. What opportunities does this bring to advertisers, and how can innovative ad formats make those opportunities even more impactful?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to innovative opportunities, we've really taken a concerted effort to work pretty deeply with Wurl and also FreeWheel to normalize and standardize ad innovation and inventory ad innovation across all different verticals. Sports is particularly exciting to see that it's trending as a genre in fast, and I think we'll continue to see that explosive growth, primarily because innovative ad opportunities that occur outside of the traditional ad pod break and inside the content stream itself really help advertisers captivate greater attention by allowing them to stand outside the clutter. And we do this in the form of creating dynamic picture-in-picture video ad inventory opportunities, L-bar, squeezebacks, dynamic graphics, and doing that in a personalized way where viewers watching concurrently can see different messages that are tailored and targeted to them based on what they're watching, who they are, and what they will find most engaging and relevant. And we've found that by aligning brand messaging with appropriate timing, context, and creative, advertisers can engage viewers really when they're most attentive and more receptive to the ads. So what does that mean? So timing. We identify lulls in action in streaming. Let's take sports, for example. Creating ad opportunity post home run when a player's rounding the bases or after a shooting foul in basketball. Managing the frequency and timing of when those ad inventories opportunities occur based on a quarter or period of time. In soccer, things like penalties and timeouts, things like that. So timing really helps allow for advertising inventory in optimal viewer experience. Then context. Context is really important for the advertiser because then you could identify the moment, incorporate native messaging into your ad opportunity based off of what the viewer's watching. So celebrate a score with the home team fan. Incorporate that, drive greater engagement with your ad creative. Then when it gets down to the creative, incorporate relevant messaging that encourages fan interaction and action, like offering them a special celebratory offer to the scoring team fan And then maybe the team that is losing, or the fan of the team that's losing, offer them a special consolation offer in the form of a discount code, things like that. It drives further action engagement and resonates more of in a conversational way versus just trying to sell a viewer something. And when this model has been activated at scale and appropriately, we've seen 4 times lift in return on ad spend, 10 times lift in things like message recall, purchase intent, compared to that of standard ad breaks. And we've seen that across all sorts of categories: automotive, retail, even pharmaceuticals. We've seen a popular OT, over-the-counter pharmaceutical brand target heartbreaking moments with heart health messaging. So you get pretty creative with what you can do and how you can engage with your consumer.
Wow. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of opportunity there. And if I remember correctly, earlier in today's conversation, you said that a lack of innovative ad units was actually what was holding back the industry. So from what you've just described and the success metrics that you listed, it seems like there's a great opportunity there.
Exactly.
So I guess, Kathy, with all of the genres, that we have on the screen right now, these genres actually spread across, more than 30. So how can marketers balance scale with contextual precision?
So the way we think about how marketers could balance scale with the contextual precision is leveraging genre and content level targeting. It is what we encourage a lot of our publishers to do. We want to make sure that when and if available, where they're able to declare this and share this information downstream, it has shown really great results, and advertisers and marketers are able to take advantage of that. So what that means is you could align your ads with the programming that it naturally resonates with for a brand's audience. So what we see here on the screen, if it's reality, if it's drama, if it's news, if it's sports, what Scott just touched on, advertisers can reach these large audiences while maintaining more relevance. The contextual targeting could allow those campaigns to deliver the right message in the right environment, and therefore reducing the waste and, again, making them more relevant. So we have seen a lot of success trying to take advantage of the genre and content level.
All right. Well, thank you for that. That actually brings up a really good point about the role of contextual targeting in streaming and how it can actually help advertisers find these stronger successes on the medium. I'm interested in all of your takes on this. What challenges are new approaches to contextual helping to solve? And really, how are you all thinking about this? Dave, I'll let you go first on that one.
Yeah, we, as you know, we're owned by AppLovin, and they are sort of an incredible performance marketing company in mobile, and we act really as their streaming arm. I'm giving you a little bit of, we'll do like Marvel origin story. And we were running, we continue to run campaigns for them every day, but we were running them and we were noticing a connection between the emotional correlation between scenes and the ad breaks and the downloads of the games, right? So if the scene and the ad kind of matched in terms of vibe and emotion, people were more likely to download a Words with Friends or Monopoly Go. So that, in the annals of Wurl, that's sort of the origin story for our approach to contextual, which definitely covers more than emotion, brand safety. And it's funny, Kathy mentioned genre, and I was about to make a crack about we wish all the metadata was as accurate as it should be, so that genre, something as simple as genre, was accurate in the bid stream, and lo and behold, it isn't. But so we're able to fix things like that. But this emotional piece is what's really cool, and that we have developed a product where we can do emotional contextual targeting. So we're matching, the creative of the ad to a content in a show that has a similar resonance. So you don't have that record scratch moment of coming out of some dark, SVU interrogation scene into a, hey, come to the Bahamas. You've got more of a positive, and it can cut both ways. We did a study with T-Vision that showed when you have alignment like that, the attention is like 2.4x. So it kind of goes back to what Scott said about attention. It's really all about delivering, positive attention for the advertisers on what is already the biggest screen in the house with a non-skippable ad. And so when you layer on contextual targeting of various stripes, but I think emotional is the one at Wurl that we're trying to really lean into, it can just deliver that much more efficacy and effectiveness for your message.
Yeah, and just to double down on that, I think to overcome the challenges there, it really takes technologists come together, like the 3 companies that you see here, in order to offer interoperability, so you can really expand capabilities, because the difference is really big. I mean, the difference of engagement is the difference of making the viewer feel like you're having a conversation with them versus just trying to sell them something, which really drives impactful outcome.
Kathy, any additional thoughts from you?
I think Dave and Scott did a great job covering a lot of the challenges that, like we said, we're all facing here.
All right. Well, thank you all for that perspective. So next, Wurl's report actually reveals that 2025 has continued the trend of lower ad fill rates across free streaming channels, largely due to the explosive growth in content supply. So what needs to happen here to help bridge this gap, and what's the opportunity for advertisers? Kathy, do you want to start?
Yeah. So when I see this, of course, no one likes low fill rates, but I do think that it's a reflection of the success that Fast has had. So I like to spin that differently and think of this as a tremendous opportunity. Content supply is growing really fast, and not as fast as the demand. So I do see this as it's all going to be able to go up from here. I think that the way we could solve for this is across the industry, trying to fix how simplified we could make it for access to these channels. Again, more consistent and better measurement, smarter frequency management, so advertisers feel confident scaling. We hear a lot about this fragmentation and deduplication of audiences. When we're seeing this success and we're seeing this growth in Fast, and advertisers are spending a tremendous amount of budgets trying to reach audiences, and they're not sure that it's the same household or if it's various people in the same household that they are reaching. That is something that we need to solve for in order for us to feel that these fill rates are increasing and everyone feels more confident across the board.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I think Kathy nailed it in terms of like, I really think it's on us. It's on technology providers to really create the innovation required to adapt to there's more supply, less demand, or how do we make it easier for advertisers to connect with that supply in a more meaningful way and offer access to seamless, high-performing ad supply, but make it easy and efficient, and most importantly, measurable across the boards to activate. So we can really deliver creativity without the expense of scale. And really, that's why the combination of what we're talking about here in the three companies that you see here is, one, delivering premium content to mass audiences, two, advanced context-aware ad decisioning, and then with high-impact ad formats that are synchronized both inside the break and inside the stream, delivers better outcomes for brands, and the demand will follow.
All right. Well, thank you. So we are approaching that time of year where we start to think about the year or years ahead. So as you all think about the next year or two, what will Fast's role be in the broader advertising ecosystem? Where will this all come into play?
I mean, I'll go next since you guys just spoke. I mean, I think it's only going up. To me, it's really a question of, what Kathy, described they're sort of like the ankle weights, right, on the workout, like that. We've just got some things that are holding us back a little bit. And, look, on a sunny, optimistic day, when I've heard the fifth panel at some IAB event talk about collaboration, I'm like, we're going to figure this out tomorrow. And then on a bad day, I'm like, a lot of talk. It feels so elusive. How do we get the walled gardens and these places to, collaborate on some standardized way to generate, to measure these various key things that the buyers need. So, but the whole time viewership's going to keep growing, right? People are going to keep watching more. So I'm generally optimistic, but I do think that it's a challenging landscape. So it's not like we have flat growth or we have a downward trend or we've hit a plateau. That's not the case. To what Scott said, ultimately the advertising money will follow the eyeballs. And the eyeballs are growing. So it's going to be a more and more important role, as Kathy said, in the media mix of advertisers. And our job is just trying to make it easier for them to spend more, quite frankly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think what we see, especially in the sports space, is media rights keep getting incredibly more expensive. Rights holders are definitely going to want to continue to achieve better monetization and an opportunity for better content discovery so they can grow their respective audiences, even back to their D2C. Fast is a great place to do that. And it's also a great place to monetize their content for free. So I think it'll continue to represent a larger and larger share of viewership, and more high profile content will definitely be coming on board. And we're even seeing that now. And it'll be free available streaming in the free streaming ad supported space.
I completely agree with Dave and Scott. I do believe FAST is going to cement its role as a core pillar in the video ecosystem. It's not just going to be an add-on. It delivers scale, as we know, premium content, data-driven precision, and it's all in the environment where consumers are leaning in, or I should say leaning back on their couch, and it's free and it's accessible. I think about this quite a bit. I don't know if it's because I'm surrounded by conversations within our industry, like you said, Dave, like the fifth panel of talking about different things that, the same buzzwords, same things within the industry. But when I take a moment back and I look beyond my professional network and I speak to folks, a lot of them don't necessarily pay for a lot of their apps, and they have really become so familiar with turning on their smart televisions and accessing these fast channels. It has become part of their habit, which is really interesting to me. And I do think that advertisers will increasingly work with fast alongside linear, alongside AVOD, alongside SVOD as part of the mix when trying to reach their brands and connect with their audiences.
All right. Well, thank you. I was actually just about to ask you if there's any takeaways in particular, or one really big takeaway that you want to leave our audience with. You all, I think, shared some big takeaways. Does anybody else have anything to add into the mix from what you just shared? All right. Well, let's get to the Q&A then. That was really wonderful. So thank you to the three of you, to Dave, to Scott, to Kathy, for that really insightful conversation. And also thanks to our audience, just so the three of you know, because I know you can't see this, we have gotten a lot of really good engagement from our audience as you were all talking. So they've certainly been engaged and listening. And let's get right into their questions right now. So the first question that we have is, what differences are you seeing between fast providers like YouTube TV fast providers and also platforms like YouTube TV in regards to viewership and advertising dollars? Kathy, maybe you should take that one. I think you talked a lot about different platforms.
Yeah. So the question is what differences we see with YouTube TV?
Yeah, between fast channels and also providers like YouTube TV in regards to viewership and ad dollars.
So I do believe that there is a difference in also demographics that tend to flock towards YouTube TV versus some of the other fast channels.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that if you want to have more control into the content and the shows, and as we mentioned, genres are really important, it is best to diversify and really go across all of the various fast channels that are available. And it is a little bit more of a black box when you are dealing with YouTube TV.
Just chiming in there because I did a presentation at the Stream TV show all about the rise of YouTube and what the F we're going to do about it. It's a black box. It's a black box that keeps growing and swallowing viewership time. So that's definitely just in terms sort of like industry conversation. I'm talking about YouTube specifically on CTV. It's become the largest platform of viewership for YouTube in the US, which I think all of us probably would find still kind of shocking. And YouTube TV has become the one virtual MVPD that's growing, about to have some cable-like fights with some of its content providers. So, YouTube is really an interesting outlier that I think in some ways, to me, it sort of makes it all the more urgent for us to get our act together on sort of the rest of the CTV ecosystem, because YouTube's going to be YouTube. And there's going to be limits there, as Kathy said. So it's imperative that we get the rest of the viewing ecosystem enabled, because YouTube is already more than a quarter of streaming time on CTV in the United States. So more than a quarter of the time people spend watching their CTV, they're watching YouTube. So that other 75%, and it's shrinking every day. We got to get it, to its optimized state.
Okay. Thank you for that. Dave, our next question, I believe, ties into some of the data shared from Wurl's report. Do you have any data on how consumers view or engage with ad content versus just getting up and taking a snack break and returning when the ads are complete?
I mentioned the T-Vision study. I mean, Kathy will probably, or Scott will know the old famous adage about, only half my advertising works. I just don't know which half. So, I mean, I think I would connect this actually, I would change my answer to be, and, and this came up in a interview I did with a reporter recently, this idea of premium. People talk about premium all the time, and fast is not premium, or what is premium? And I think that word is a word that is like certain things in our business. It gets used by different people, different reasons, right? So it's UGC versus premium. Well, premium means professionally produced, or does it mean HBO Max versus like a free AVOD app? And so, at the end of the day, TV is TV. If you're sitting on the couch watching on the giant screen and an ad comes on, that's a premium moment. And so, I don't think there's a real difference. And so I think it's just important to note that, right? So TV is television. Viewership is migrating to these free services. And if you've got a viewer watching their television, that's a fantastic moment for an advertiser.
Yeah. Scott, I wonder actually if you have any thoughts on that, given a lot of your comments on the innovative ad units.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they all work together. I mean, I think that the ad experience in TV is no different than the standardized ad experience today that exists in FAST. So it's been proven that it's effective. So I think you have the ad pod break that provides this layer of effective outcome. And then you can synchronize that with what happens inside of the stream. And inside of the stream, you're standing out beyond the ad break. You're having a personal moment with the viewer because it's just your brand front and center with each individual viewer. And you can kind of double down on your message and provide that extra layer of engagement because they're actively watching, engaged in the stream, and what moment they're actually watching.
Okay, thank you. Next question from one of our viewers: is fast CTV being used too much as an audience targeted approach when it could simply be used as a great extension or a complement to traditional TV for broad reach? I see Scott nodding his head right here.
Yeah, I think it absolutely is. I think it's not, I mean, my perspective is from what I've seen, and Dave has more insight than I do, but it's not being used as effectively as it could be. All the things that we're talking about context and creating a branding-like experience, even if you want to drill down to a direct response initiative, you can tie your ad message more appropriately to the content that the viewer's watching. And yeah, right now we see a lot of mass kind of like audience data type of initiatives, which is great, but there's a lot more that can be done.
All right, thank you. Kathy, I'd love to hear from you. What can streaming borrow or learn from mobile or digital advertising?
I think we could take a page from digital by focusing on personalization and interactivity. And we could do that without necessarily compromising the premium TV experience. I think things like, I know we spoke about it, things like creative new ad units, creative versioning, sequential messaging, attribution modeling. I think all of these are areas where streaming can apply some of the proven digital strategies that we've used in the past to help elevate both the effectiveness, but also the accountability that will hopefully help increase those fill rates and how much marketers are leaning into the FAST channel.
All right, thank you. Scott, another question about the innovative ad units. What advancements in interactive or shoppable ads are you seeing in streaming TV that show promise right now?
I mean, I think being able, like everything we're talking about, of really being able to tie the messaging into the moment could create a shoppable experience because you could expand what you're trying to get the viewer to do based off of what they're watching because you know what moment they're involved in. You can tie a message into exactly like if someone's watching sports, selling a jersey, you can tie it to a play that someone's seeing on screen, which we've seen that's really effective. We've also just seen things that are really effective in even like just simply driving people to scan a QR code, but we know the reference point that they're watching a sporting event, it's halftime and they want food delivery. So it's being able to time interactions with moments and context.
All right, great points. Thank you. Dave, we have a viewer who asks a little bit more about some of the data, again, that you shared from Wurl's report. The viewer is saying the data points to an obvious continued growth for free streaming channels. What do you think is the biggest reason advertisers still wouldn't buy into the medium?
I think Kathy covered it. We just have some systemic things that just make it a lot more complicated for the buyers. At the end of the day, it's just, we need it. Again, I come from the cable world, and we need to make it as easy for a buyer to be buying, some sort of audience or targeted, demo, you name it, just the way they would buy Comedy Central or, Adult Swim or ESPN on cable for some important initiative or some flight. They need to be able to do that across CTV in an easy way that's somewhat, it's never going to be directly analogous, but needs to be close enough. And we're just not there yet, and you got to make it easy, it's in that sense within the system on the buy side, they're like the customers, right? And somehow we need to get the machine to make it easier for them, essentially as customers of the ecosystem, to buy more and make it, make it have less friction and make it easier to measure and manage up and report back, et cetera.
All right, just make it easier. That will be helpful. Kathy.
I was going to add to Dave's response that I don't believe that advertisers are questioning the audience. They're questioning the complexity of buying and proving the ROI. So again, it goes back to if we all could work towards simplifying the process.
Okay, thank you. Dave, in regards to the data findings from the latest report, what was most surprising to you, or even what was something that stood out as a newer trend that you don't think has really been talked about that much right now?
It was all positive incremental growth across the vectors that matter, right? So I was happy to see, because I've always, having come from cable, I sort of knew the channels per month was low. It's like, gosh, they've got 2 or 3 channels. It must be like they go back to their Samsung and there's a thumbnail that says recently watched. They didn't even know they were watching a fast channel, within a 300 channel environment. Why wouldn't they be watching 5, 6, 7 channels a month? So that's why I talked about the fact that it's nice to see some growth, but it's still a very low number for what you would think of as a monthly viewing on a giant multi-channel platform. But it's nice to see it move in the right direction. So I would say nothing really stood out to me. It was all just nice movement forward in every regard.
Okay, good to know. We have another question about the genres, Dave, that you talked about. The viewer says you talked a lot about genres, but with fast options, wouldn't a targeted approach through retargeting or behavioral targeting be a better use of ad dollars?
Well, maybe you could translate that question to me and how that relates to the genre. I'm not sure. What the question's getting at, to be honest with you.
Okay. If our viewer has anything else to add, please put that in the chat for us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next question is about walled gardens in particular. One viewer notes an example of the recent announcement of Amazon's new partnership with Netflix. So are you all predicting more of these walled gardens coming down and allowing more access to advertisers?
Oh, that's a Kathy question.
I'm not sure I'm prepared to respond to that one. I'm going to punt that one to my friend Scott.
I mean, let's look at right now where the walled gardens are not, and that's a massive pool. I mean, I think if you just look at if we're talking about FAST alone, like the major FAST platforms like Samsung, LG, Vizio, they're not walled up. They're able to be accessed. You can decision on that inventory with any data. We are basically revealing contextual information that even make it more easy and expansive and new opportunities to buy across all those different mediums. So based off of what we see within the pool of inventory that is not walled garden, that's growing rapidly. So that's the area we're focused in. And in the future, will those walls come down? In some cases, yes. Some cases, no.
All right, thank you for that. We're going to take one more question today. We had a few questions actually come in on how to take action on all of the great information that you all shared today. So if you're an advertiser looking to translate these trends into action, what's one area you'd recommend prioritizing in Q4 and also next year? Dave?
I mean, I think, it's interesting because we talk a lot about the potential with digital technologies, it's what we get out of bed every day at Wurl and focus on. And it's what Scott's innovating and doing, what Kathy is enabling across this big platform. But I think there's still a lot of room for just basic, good quality brand advertising on CTV as well. We're not going to get all the money to move from cable and broadcast for like hardcore performance, just like using Facebook to sell lipstick. It's just not going to be that. There's going to be a lot of innovation that will bring more and more and more of that to TV that you could never do on legacy TV. Awesome. Hooray for us. But there's also just opportunity just to achieve efficient marketing of your brand on CTV. So, I think it's like lean in, in whatever way you're looking to market your products for the holiday season. Q4 is important. Like Kathy said, it's part of the media mix, but needs to be more fundamental and be a growth area. So I don't think it has to be, well, I don't have this digital thing, or I don't have this, this performance mindset. We're just looking to do this broad thing. Hey, CTV is a fantastic place to do all versions of television advertising.
All right. Anybody else have any other priorities they want to leave our audience with that they should be thinking about?
I'll add contextual strategies. I think as we head into Q4, into 2026, I believe the smart play is leaning into the contextual strategies on FAST. You get relevance plus scale, and I think that that's a powerful combination.
All right, thank you. So actually, Dave, I did get some additional context on the genre question. So real fast, again, the question was, you talk a lot about genres, but with fast options, wouldn't a targeted approach through retargeting or behavioral targeting be a better use of ad dollars? And our viewer says, rather than targeting by genre, targeting based on demos such as age, income, or interests. Does that help?
It does. At a high level, the CTV space is largely a household-driven targeting environment. There are the abilities through the DSPs and SSPs to do various levels of demographic filtering and targeting, but it is not a one-to-one, ecosystem like the phone. So it is, a lot of what you're doing is based on household information. So I don't know if that partly answers the question, but I think the thing about contextual that's interesting, I'd love to actually hear Kathy and Scott talk about this, is what your questioner described was in a lot of ways the playbook that we've already been running in certain places around like buying the demo. But maybe it's partially due to the fact that in the CTV environment, we're based on an IP address in a household. But in a sense, it's a different way to target people, and it's privacy safe. So you're going for, you're trying to sell the Bahamas tourism campaign, and you're going for people watching and uplifting moments. Versus saying, well, it's women 18 to 34 who are millennials, with 2 kids who need to go to the beach in the Northeast in the winter. So it's a different approach. I think that's kind of exciting thing about it. That's the version of an answer, but these guys also might have some thoughts on the question.
Yeah, and it's not mutually exclusive. I think it all can work together. So you can do one, you could segment inventory by context, but segment a large pool of ad inventory by context. Don't just focus on show programming, do groupings or bundling of premium content, layer on whatever audience data you can through your demand side platform, your ad server, FreeWheel, and then decision on those impressions that you would like out of a segmented pool of inventory. That's one way to do it. Or you can say, hey, if this isn't my strategy, I want to reach people that like sports, or I want to reach people that are actively watching news during these hours. Just do a context-driven approach and then retarget those viewers that you engage to further supplant your messaging to drive the greatest outcome and conversions.
All right, well, thank you. And I'll give a shout out to our viewer who gave us some additional context while we were live. So thank you so much. And of course, Dave, Kathy, Scott, thank you to the 3 of you for being here today for this great content. And of course, for answering all of those audience questions. We so appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having
Thanks, Marissa. Thank you.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up, let me just take a moment to tell you about eMarketer's media channels. So mark your calendars for eMarketer's next 2 virtual summits on November 14th. Join us for CTV and streaming advertising trends for 2026, featuring senior analyst Ross Benish and leaders from PepsiCo, Nutrafol, and more. And then a month later, on December 5th, tune in for the Commerce Media 2026 kickoff, featuring principal analyst Sarah Marzano and marketers from brands like Everyman Jack. To secure your spot, to register for more webinars like this one, and to subscribe to our newsletters, they are all available at emarketer.com. And if you're looking for the smartest takes in marketing, tune into our eMarketer podcasts. We have Behind the Numbers, Reimagining Retail, and the Banking and Payments Show on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Keep an eye on your email for the link to today's playback. And of course, feel free to contact us if you have any other questions. Thank you all for your time. And thanks again to Dave, the team at Wurl, and the eMarketer studio behind the scenes for making this webinar possible. We'll see you all on the next Tech Talk.